Hey, it's Chris Pre. Welcome to another Deal Structure Sunday. I am once again this week, and I'm totally mix it up on you. I'm not going to show you a whiteboard. I'm not going to show you payday 1, 2s, and 3s because we are learning over and over and over again. If you're watching the Motivational Mondays, for example, or if you've been to any of our events, we are learning that the mental game is what's stopping you. The mental game is maybe what's stopping you to coming into the community. There's beliefs in there, there's limitations. Once you're in the community, frankly, even if you're an associate, the mental is what's stopping you from going faster and actually getting to your first deal because we're teaching the same skill sets. Remember the 3 pillars: mental, skill, systems. We got the systems. We're teaching the same skill sets to everyone. These 2 are in place. Why then do people do deals in 30 days, 70 days, or 365 days? Why? Mental. In this interview with Joe Vitale, Dr. Joe Vitale, written 70 or 80 books, was in the movie The Secret, just an amazing guy. In this video, you're going to see and listen to his dramatic challenges since speaking at the 2018 QLS Live Event. You can also hear how we battled through that on the mental side and how incredibly important that is, and some cool tools for you guys to use. So enjoy this and don't let anything get in your way from number 1, locking arms with us, and number 2, getting deals done on your own either way. So I haven't seen you in person since you spoke on stage pre-COVID. I think it was, well, actually it was 18, wasn't it? Fall of 18, maybe. So
That's right.
pre-COVID. So yeah, it's been 2.5 years. What the heck have you been up to since then is my first question. Then I've got 2 pages of things I could ask you.
Well, I'll tell you, Chris, I've been through the dark night of the soul. Right after seeing you, I filed for a divorce, which I thought would be easy and effortless. Turned out to be a 2-year persecution of my life and business that was exhausting, expensive, distracting, and more. And during that time, I still traveled. I went to Thailand, which I think I told you I was going to at the time.
Yeah.
Went to Thailand, went to Russia, went to the Ukraine, went to Italy, did a whole bunch of speaking all over the world. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, shut me down completely when it comes to travel and that kind of thing. And despite it all, with a pandemic, with a divorce, with my father dying during this period as well, and a family member attempting suicide during this member period as
Wow.
well, best friend dying during this period as well, getting into a new relationship with somebody who developed a near-death disease.
Wow.
With all of this, I still came out with 5 new books. And I'm saying it because
Like
even I'm
speechless.
impressed. So I guess I can't stop myself from coming out with new books. They're organically just delivered like babies. But I think I have 5, maybe even 6 books since I saw you last, and probably some other online courses. So the short answer is I'm living my life, but there have been some dramatic ups and downs.
Okay, now this, I literally am speechless because I didn't know all that. I knew maybe 1 or 2 things. I
Yeah.
knew when I messaged you that when you lost your dad, and sorry again.
Yes.
But all this other stuff, I think it's super important, Joe, for the Wicked Smart listeners to know, I don't know, 2 or 3 high points as to how and what gave you the strength to persevere through that. Because a book would have been a lot. And I know, granted, you're an author of, I don't know how many now, I lost count, 70 plus
Me
maybe, but
too. I've lost count.
I don't care how experienced you are, to do that during that is, man, oh man, is a feat and a half. So I would like you to just help them understand that, because I know right now, out of the 10,000 people that'll download this week, there's people that were in your shoes, right? And you could
Yeah.
really help them.
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. I'm glad to offer a few things that have helped me. Believe me, this has been torturous. The whole process with everything, death, divorce, moving, putting my home of 20 years up for sale during a pandemic, also needing to buy a house during a pandemic. Uh, so many variables, so many things going on. And with as much skills that you would think I have, because I'm a self-help author and I'm considered to be this spiritual guru of sorts and speak different places, including for your audience, when push comes to shove and you're really brought down by life, you got to find what works or you're going to be taken out. And I was in that position. So one of the things I did is I looked at Stoicism, and Stoicism, I call it empowered victimhood. because the Stoics of thousands of years ago lived through worse times than we've gone through. It's appalling. It's atrocious. It's unbelievable what they went through. But yet they managed to get a mindset that helped them get through it. And there were quotes like from Marcus Aurelius, who was the Roman emperor who wrote the book Meditations. And in that book, he said, if you can endure it, then endure it and stop complaining. And I remember thinking about what I was going through, and I thought to myself, can I endure it? Yeah, I don't want to endure it. I don't prefer to endure it. I don't relish enduring it, but can I endure it? And with the answer of yes, I can get up and go each day. The second thing I looked at is really bringing life down to the moment. Because I couldn't predict any outcomes, whether it's a pandemic or a divorce, there was no way to know when it's going to have closure. But if I bring everything to today and say, if I handle today, I'll be okay. And so I would say one day at a time, it's all fine. One day at a time, it's all fine. Just like today, I got several things going on today, some of them pretty dramatic, but I'm with you today. I'm with you this morning. So if I focus on today, everything's okay. One day at a time, we can manage it. The third thing I learned to do, and this is a tough one for a lot of people, is ask for help. Ask for help. I'm a great believer in coaching, as you are, but I also am a believer in getting a counselor when you need it. I've had a counselor that I've used off and on since 1985, the same woman. She is elderly at this point, but she's still on call. In fact, I'm talking to her this afternoon.
Awesome.
And that is to help me get out of my own head. With all the tools, many of which I write about in my books, and I still use today, whether it's the tapping technique, which is EFT, which is like TFT, psychological acupuncture. I do Ho'oponopono, which is going to be weird to the people who don't know what that is, but it's a Hawaiian healing method that I write about and talk about. I do belief clearing, which I've written about and talked about. In fact, one of my new books is called The Art and Science of Results. And The Art and Science of Results has 9 ways to get clear of your blocks. So I use all of those things. But at some point, if the darkness seems like it's overtaking me, I know, throw a life preserver out there, man. Send a flare up, make a phone call, get somebody that can help you. And I've done that. I have done that a lot. And as I just mentioned, I'm still doing it even later today. So trying to do this stuff alone, playing John Wayne or the Lone Ranger or thinking you can handle it is often a mistake. Handle as much as you can, but at some point realize, man, if I need some help, just fricking ask for it. So those are the highlights of the top 3 things maybe that I've done and still do.
Well, okay. I love a bunch of those. And I wrote down some things as we were going, as you probably noticed. One is when I look back, the 2 times I got beat up the worst, and one was real bad. I look back, I just figured this out right after meeting you in person in 18. And that was I didn't have a mentor or a coach because I was too full of myself. And I think like, oh, no, that's stupid. I was super scary to even think that's what I could have done and I missed the opportunity. So I love that you do that. 70, 80
Mhm.
books and you say, okay, I got to reach out. It's just
Right.
awesome. The other question I have for Wicked Smart listeners, because I want this to be a nugget for them, is the quote, if you can endure it, then endure it and stop complaining. So, all right. So then how could they stop themselves from saying, well, I can't endure it? Like, what's the test there, whether they can endure it or not, right?
Right. Well, the real test is, can you survive it?
There you go.
And I'm going back to the ancient Stoics because those guys were, they were crucified, literally. They were tortured. They went through physical atrocities we can't even imagine today. And I don't even want to mention beyond what I just did. And so the bottom line is anybody killing me? Is anybody torturing me? Is anybody physically harming me? Is anybody going to put me on a cross and crucify me? Anything below that, I can endure.
There you go.
And what I was going through was more psychological. And when you start to dissect this, and this is where belief work comes in and why I think it's so important that we all have a coach, everybody should have a coach. It's because our beliefs will seem like reality to us. and we won't see that there is another way to perceive life. So I look at the ancient Stoics and go, okay, they went through, in fact, people like Seneca was ordered to kill himself, and he died as a suicide, ordered by the court, much like Socrates. And I would say, is the divorce court going to do that to me? Hell no.
Right.
Hell no. All of this is unpleasant. All of this is less than preferred. But can I actually endure it? Hell yes.
Yeah.
And so I think the phrase I would use is you have to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Ruthlessly honest. Can you survive what's going on? Yes, we can survive what's going on. We may have to adapt. We may have to improvise. We may have to pivot 30 different times in a day, but surely we can survive it because there's nobody putting us in front of a firing squad, nobody torturing us, nobody sentencing us to prison or death. That's in a whole different category. And yet at the same time, as I say that, Chris, on those days when I would wake up and go, yeah, I'm not so sure I can endure this. I mean, dark days when I just felt like I don't even want to live.
Mm.
That's when I know I need help.
Mm.
That's the inner signal that says, if you don't feel you can endure this, call somebody.
Yeah.
Get some help, get your mentor, get a counselor, get a psychiatrist, get a social worker, get your best friend, get somebody to help you see out of your own belief system.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say one more thing about this, because you can put me on a soapbox here and on a roll, and I'll just say, Chris, you can go get your coffee. I'm going to talk for a while. I saw a quote from Seneca the other day, who's one of the early Stoics, and he says, it's all in your head. You have the power to make it seem hard or easy or even amusing. The choice is yours. That was his quote. Now stop and think about this. If somebody watching this right now is going through some sort of ordeal, and it could be a divorce, it could be a disease, we're thrown curveballs in life, and they're going through something. When I heard Seneca's quote that I could see it or make it seem like it's hard, well, that's kind of a default for most of us. We're going to make it look harder than what it actually is. Or we could make it seem easy. That kind of stopped me and went, easy? That's really a perception. And then he throws in the kicker, or even amusing. And I remember thinking, I wonder how I can look at this and make it funny. And at first, when you first hear this, or you first think about this, you go, no, that's not really possible. There's nothing funny about this. But Seneca's quote is saying, you can make it seem amusing, which puts the power in your domain.
Mm.
So that's where all of this is coming from. It's bringing it all the way down to your mindset is controlling whether you are unhappy or happy. And if you pause long enough to reflect on what I'm saying or what Seneca said or somebody else, it could remind you, you have a freaking choice.
Mm.
You have a choice here. And sometimes reaching out to your coach, the best they can do is remind you of that choice. And the reminder ends up being priceless.
What's a bunch of amazing things here. I want to comment two things, and I'm going to pivot to some other questions because this is so cool. And I think it's just going to power so many people, Joe. One is you just said something about choice, and my good friend who's on the show recently, he's actually speaking tonight to our group, David Nurse. He's a high performance coach for NBA players. And in his book, he says, your superpower is the ability to choose, is choice. So, and you just nailed that at the end there. Do you think it's amazing? Like we went through my son's accident, as you know, Nick, when he went through that head injury, and then my brother passing, you're going through all this. And sometimes you look back, people go, how did you get through that? And I don't know, like I got in the mode so don't you think the body's amazing, the mind's amazing if it's treated like all these things you're talking about?
Absolutely. We are far more powerful. We are far more courageous. We are far more persistent than we ever imagined. And sometimes what happens is that life throws us these experiences to wake us up.
Mm.
And part of what we awaken to is our own power. I actually, at one point, and this is like a year and a half into my divorce, which absolutely, my divorce ends tomorrow.
Wow.
So I'm going to court tomorrow morning, and because of the pandemic, court is like this. You do it
Yeah,
over
yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah.
So you don't even go to a courthouse, which actually is a cool benefit. But you look at the idea that you are far more powerful than you ever thought, that you have choice that you ever didn't even know you had. But very often somebody just needs to remind you of it. And I remember at some point, a year and a half into my divorce, I renamed it my empowerment training. And I didn't say that to the judge, and I didn't say that to attorneys. I said it to me.
Yeah.
Because I looked at, why is this going on? I think of myself as a nice guy. And when I filed for divorce, I basically was willing to give my ex everything. I mean, I was going to walk away from the house, business. I was just going to give her everything because I knew she'd be hurt and I knew I wanted to help her. And she refused. She preferred to fight. And that made me develop skills instead of being the nice guy all the time or rolling over, which in the past might have been what I did. I actually had to develop strengths within me. So I ended up calling this a good thing and labeling it between me and the universe as my empowerment training.
Mm.
So a lot of what we go through, the Stoics say Hercules would not have been Hercules had he not been thrown all the challenges which caused him to develop courage and muscular strength. It was actually the challenges that were not just the test, but they were the recipe that was needed to develop what was latent within him. So to answer your question, I think we all have these powers, but none of us really knock on the door or open it up or go into the superhuman ability until there is a death, a disease, some obstacle, some challenge that we didn't expect, never wanted, ever would have wanted. But it's there to actually develop something. And because it's there, we step up and surprise ourselves.
All right, guys, that interview went for another 20 minutes, okay? So you're going to want to go ahead and go to episode airing on 226. So if it already aired and is past 226, just go to the podcast, look for Joe Vitale around February 26th airing day and get some major tools that he put in there. But let me tell you this for an immediate tool. Please, right now, do this for yourself. Do this for your future. Do this for your family. Do this for your income for decades. Go to bizscaling.com, and get your ticket for the virtual event coming up on March 31st and April 1st. This is about improving the mental game, and in this event, we're going to talk about launching, scaling, and then crossing the line to 7 figures, and the mental game is never left out of that piece. And part of what Joe just talked about was rubbing elbows with, associating with, listening to, being influenced by the right people. That was built in there. I hope you got that. And we're going to be able to deliver that to you in a big way at the Biz Scaling event. Look forward to seeing you there.